All right, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's doing okay on this Wednesday. Thank you all for being here. We are here to talk about hurricane preparedness. It actually is Hurricane Preparedness Week to get prepared for hurricane season, which starts June 1st. I am just briefly going to go over some housekeeping items before we get into the details of the presentation. You all are muted right now. Don't feel that you have to get on your video. This is more of a webinar setup. Just feel free to just listen into the information. It is very important for us as Floridians to hear. We will do questions at the end of the presentation. Feel free throughout the presentation to type a question to me in the chat box. To get to that, when you hover over your screen, there's going to be a chat button at the bottom middle part of your screen. It'll say chat. You click on that. You can actually individually send me an email. My name's Brittany Cartwright, or you can send it to everyone. Totally up to you, but we will not go over questions until the end. And then to go through our presenters for today, they will be able to talk through some of the key pieces to know in order to be prepared. So we have Howard Altschule, and I am sorry, Howard, if I butchered your name. I totally forgot to ask you about that beforehand, but anyway.
That was actually perfect.
Perfect. Okay, so Howard has been a meteorologist for more than 24 years and is the founder and managing member of Forensic Weather Consultants, LLC. He is the recipient of the coveted and internationally recognized Certified Consulting Meteorologist designation from the American Meteorological Society, which is the highest certification a consulting meteorologist can receive. Howard, we will go through your bits just in a little bit. I want to make sure that every panelist gets some introduction as well. We will have Dave Markarian on the call as well. He is a strategic professional known for getting things done, providing value through advocacy and counsel in challenging legal, insurance, business, regulatory, governmental compliance, energy, and technology arenas with an extensive track record of success in meeting tough challenges. David's track record of hands-on courtroom, appellate, and regulatory legal representation includes winning scores of jury trials, landmark industry and regulatory proceedings, including complex insurance, commercial, and contract cases, and successfully handling cases involving protection of intellectual property, theft of trade secrets, energy and trading, transmission, employment law, and along with nuisance. So we'll hear from him in just a moment. And John Carr is our storm restoration expert. He is Vice President of Restoration Division of R&R Industries, a commercial contractor headquartered in Central Florida since 1948. John will be leading the restoration division from a new office to be located in Palm Beach County. Widely recognized for his restoration expertise, Carr brings many years of experience, having worked on major projects throughout the state, including Hurricanes Matthew, Irma, and Michael, just to name a few. John, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, and thank you so much for being here.
You have to unmute your microphone, John. I can't hear you. Can you guys?
Can you hear me? All right, perfect. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, Palm Beach North, for allowing R&R Industries and myself to sponsor this great series that we're going to be having on hurricane preparedness, how to get ready before, during, and after the storm. I'm real excited to join the R&R team, with their experience, their in-house crews, from commercial roofing to just doing repairs, their in-house gutter crews, sheet metal shop. I mean, the whole production team has just been phenomenal, and I'm very excited to be part of this team. Very entrepreneurial, and I can't express enough how great this is going to be, not just for me, but for our community as we launch throughout the state and throughout the United States. So stay tuned for some exciting new things at R&R Industries with some different services that we're going to provide, and specifically with the hurricane restoration side. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go right into today's agenda. So today's agenda is we're going to have, you know, a look at the historical data, what's been going on in our region with hurricanes, and then 2020 hurricane season outlook, which Howard is going to be reviewing this with us and giving us his feedback as a meteorologist. And then some of the actions that we need to take now to be ready. You know, are you making sure you're checking your insurance policy? And what does your property look like? Is your property ready for a storm to, you know, affect the area? And then we'll end with a Q&A. So to start off with Howard, you know, I met Howard many years ago, and I got to tell a quick funny story. Howard's probably like, oh no. So we were down in the Keys fishing one day. We're on this great boat, and we're cruising, we're having a good time, and Howard's looking off into the sky. He's looking into the clouds, and I'm like, Howard, are you okay? You getting seasick? And he's like, no. And then he starts explaining these clouds to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Does that mean we need to go in? And he goes, no, it means we need to get away from those clouds, because those clouds, watch how they're going to form. And he literally, the clouds did exactly what he said they were going to do. So it was quite interesting. So that's my brief intro of Howard there. So on this slide, this is going to show you what's been going on, the hurricanes that have impacted Florida since 2000. So it's been roughly 9 storms. By the way, out of those 9, half of those have hit and affected Palm Beach County since 2000. So if you look at it, we have 9 storms that have hit, and more than half of those have affected our area. I want to talk a little bit, and Howard's going to go through these with me as well, but I want to talk a little bit, make sure everyone knows. Look at the close calls we've had. Hurricane Matthew, Hurricane Dorian. If you take a look, that little blip that you see there, that's pretty much Palm Beach North. I tried to get it right on to Palm Beach North, but that's Palm Beach North. And if you look at all the storms that are just east of us, just one tick closer, and those would have made landfall. And with Hurricane Matthew, there was millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of damage done to the state of Florida by Hurricane Matthew. And as you can see, it didn't even essentially make landfall, as they say. This next slide is really what a mess, right? So this is the one I want Howard to talk about. This is hurricanes and tropical storms since 2000 that have affected Florida. So Howard, when you see this, you know, as a meteorologist, what do you think of when you see this? And tell me a little bit about why we're seeing so much activity.
Well, it's a spaghetti plot map of past historical hurricane and tropical storm tracks. And it makes sense. It goes back 19 years. And there's been a lot of activity. I mean, this includes Hurricane Francis, Katrina, Jean, you know, 2004, 2005, Gordon, and a lot of other ones that moved up the coast. Hurricane Michael is included last year, as well as other ones that didn't make landfall. But one thing you'll notice, you'll see that most of these either come from the bottom right part of your screen, which are tropical Atlantic kind of Cape Verde hurricanes or tropical systems. Those tend to be the most powerful because they form as tropical waves coming off of the African coast, and they have a ton of time to strengthen and organize with all the warm water of the Atlantic Ocean. But right in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, you see a bunch of them that originate right over the Eastern Gulf. And, you know, that's a big threat as well. I remember Charlie. Yeah, there's Charlie right there. Perfect, 2004. That was a beast going into the Fort Myers, Naples area. And, you know, it really intensified over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico right before it made landfall. So you have, you know, 2 areas. One is the Gulf of Mexico, where tropical systems can form. And then the other typically is in the tropical Atlantic on those waves coming off Africa, which you're used to seeing on the Weather Channel or on satellite, that type of thing. And we do get some that form in the Caribbean as well, down south of Cuba. But you can see you know, these tracks go all over the place, and there's varying intensities. The majority of them are weaker. You know, they're not that strong. The majority are tropical storms, maybe category 1 hurricanes. But we've, you know, lately have had a lot of category, you know, 3, 4, 5s that have affected Florida especially over the Panhandle with Michael and Irma as well. We're getting, still getting a bunch of Hurricane Irma insurance claims and lawsuits that are coming in every day. We just got another one about 5 minutes before this conference call started. So the statute of limitations to file a lawsuit with Hurricane Irma claims is September of this year. And I don't know if they're pushing that back or not, but that's one of the reasons we're getting a lot of retained on a lot of cases by attorneys and insurance companies. Irma could cause a lot of problems, and it caused a lot of problems in Palm Beach County. Now this spaghetti plot, I'll hand it back to you 1 second, John.
Sure.
But the interesting thing about this spaghetti plot, it almost seems like it's going to be spot on, because there are several computer models, and they've been consistent over the past 3-4 days that there may be some tropical system forming in the Gulf of Mexico, in a few days or next week, and that where that exactly forms or how strong that gets, if it does, is to be determined. But looking at the latest models, which are coming in right now, it does have something around the 9th. So 9th, 10th forming in the western Gulf of Mexico.
Wow.
And then heading toward, generally the Florida Keys or Cuba. Right now, it doesn't look like a big storm, but it's definitely going to be tropical in nature if it does form. And it's one of these things where, my eyebrow is raised a little bit, like, that's interesting, because not only have numerous computer models over the past several days forecast the same thing, but different computer models like the European and the GFS are also forecasting some sort of disturbance. So that usually means that something's going to form. And there's even a second one that forms over the Western Atlantic by the Bahamas around the 16th, 17th. So it looks like we might get an early start to the hurricane season. And it makes a lot of sense with the ocean temperatures being much warmer than normal. And we're going to be what we call a neutral ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. So when it's neutral to maybe La Nina, that tends to increase hurricane activity in the United States. So to me, it looks like it's going to be a much more active hurricane season than usual because of the warm ocean temperatures that will fuel the tropical systems as they move along. So yeah, this is a timely presentation, I think.
Well, absolutely. And thank you for all that information. I didn't know something was going on in the Gulf already, but that's why we have you. And, that segues right into, real quick, I want to hit on Hurricane Charlie. If you notice, Hurricane Charlie, when that was coming up, it was not forecasted to hit Punta Gorda. And I was actually at a conference with somebody in Miami, and they were from that area, and they all of a sudden they left, and they said we have to leave because there was the storm track changed all of a sudden. It just took that quick turn. So even though there's these forecasts, I don't even think it was in the cone when it made that first turn. So always keep that in mind. I think a lot of people look at that cone and they rely on it pretty heavy. So on the next slide, that goes right into where we're talking about hurricane probabilities, Howard. And let's, talk about, what we've seen. Now, this information we gathered from Colorado State University, it says right now, there'll be a new one released on June 2nd, but the one that was released on April 2nd says that there's a 68% chance category 1 or 2 is going to hit. And in a category 3, 4, or 5, which is considered major hurricane, 31%. If we dig a little deeper, right, I said, well, let me see what's going to really affect the Palm Beach North area. So Palm Beach County is at a 6.7, 3.1. Martin County, just our neighbors just north of us, 2.6, 1.2, which I thought was interesting, a little lighter. And then check this out. If you go and you look at Broward County is even, so Palm Beach County, seem to be higher than everyone else. And can you explain a little bit, why are these percentages going up a little bit? What's your expertise on that, or what's your opinion as to why, we're seeing our percentages going up, not just in the state, but in Palm Beach County?
So I think, part of the issue here is Palm Beach County is a much bigger county than, say, Broward or Martin County. So I think that's why they have a higher percentage. There's more real estate for a hurricane to potentially affect Palm Beach County as opposed to a more narrow Broward. These should be, taken with a grain of salt. They're based on just historical activity and models that they have. It's important not to focus on the exact percentages, but more so the general theme of what's going on. in terms of what I was talking about earlier. You know, this is saying a 68% chance of a Category 1 or 2 hurricane hitting Florida, and I think that's, you know, I think that's right on. I think it's above normal, you know, above normal chance. It'll be busier and more active than usual. So yeah, certainly more than a 50% chance of a hurricane affecting Florida. And I would say that's probably spot on, somewhere around 66 to 70% chances, which is a little bit elevated, a little bit more active than normal. And you know, whether it hits Palm Beach County, Martin County, or Broward County, I mean, that's why those percentages are so much lower, because, you know, it's impossible to forecast that, you know, right now. And I always take these with a grain of salt, but I do like, you know, I do believe that we're able to predict whether we're, you know, likely to see something more, more active hurricane season or a less active hurricane season, you know. And traditionally, the research has shown that, you know, neutral neutral Nino condition or La Nina conditions are favorable for hurricanes, and I think that's what we're going to be in. The fact that the ocean water temperatures in the Gulf and the Atlantic are so much warmer than normal, you know, that's the fuel for hurricanes and tropical systems. So it makes sense.
Now, do you think you see this might even increasing, you know, a continuous increase in these percentages of the probabilities coming in the near future as well? Not just 20, but 2021?
It all depends, really. It depends on how these weather patterns and these global circulations occur. I think this type of air mass where Florida is going to stay hot and humid and potentially tropical, with tropical activity, I mean, that's going to continue into the fall. So Florida looks like it's going to be above normal temperatures, which not only causes hurricanes, you know, in the waters, but also severe thunderstorms. I think there'll be a lot of strong to severe thunderstorm activity, some hailstorms, and, you know, and some isolated tornadoes, probably more than normal this year. And we're already seeing that. We had a couple events last week and the week before. So yeah, I mean, it looks like this type of pattern will persist at least through September, October, and then we'll have to see. Things usually shift as, you know, as weather patterns move, you know, from different parts of the year to the other. But it looks like this is going to stick around through the early fall. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, to that point, I don't think I've lived here all my life. I think I could count how many times I've seen hail in Palm Beach County. On one hand, and then last week we had it twice, or the week before. And, you know, when I was doing some assessments on some buildings, you could see where there was hail there, and some of it was, you know, quite large. Most of it was that softer hail, but I'll tell you, it's interesting to watch that because we had never seen that this far south. Now, Martin County had some hailstorms, you know, 5 years ago or so that impacted them pretty well. Do you think and that's a perfect segue into my next question for you here. Can you give us one tip as a meteorologist when it comes to weather, not just hurricanes, but whether it's hail or, you know, all of a sudden in the afternoon here in Palm Beach County or in South Florida, you know, 3 o'clock rolls around. You know, I remember growing up as a kid, we knew we didn't even need to look at what time it was at our watch. We could just look in the sky and, oh, it must be around 3 o'clock because these storms would come from the west. So if there's one tip you could give us about weather in our area, what would it be, Howard?
It's the old cliche, you know, pay attention to the warnings. And I think that really holds true. And that's something that's really important for people to do, whether it's a hurricane warning, evacuations, or a severe thunderstorm warning or tornado warning. They issue those for a reason. Usually they're not just a CYA type thing, but they issue them for a reason. And if there's a tornado warning, it means because Doppler radar is indicating a tornado. And, you know, I've seen so many videos recently, just in the past month, where people say, oh, we always get these warnings and nothing happens, you know, and then a tornado rips their house apart. So, you know, pay attention to those warnings. And, you know, if there's a hailstorm coming or a big thunderstorm, you know, you might want to find a carport or a gas station to get underneath.
All right. Well, great. Well, Howard, thank you. Hopefully you can stay on for the rest. I know you're really busy working on all these cases from, you know, these hurricanes, and so I appreciate it, and I you know, appreciate our friendship, and I look forward to working with you.
No, absolutely. You're a great client, and he does fantastic work. He gets it. So it's good when you know, put different professionals together that, you know, can solve a problem, and you know, John's great with that. So I'll stick around on mute if there's any questions, and you know, and I'll stick around as long as I can. But thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. That's one thing I will take credit for. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I put the smartest people in the room together to make sure that we help our clients. So, all right, moving on. Dave Markarian, my friend Dave. Gosh, I met Dave. We were sitting there. He helped me prepare. We were doing something for Palm Beach North Chamber, and he needed to help me prepare for a presentation we needed to do for the town of Jupiter. And I sat next to Dave, and we just kind of hit it off immediately. I don't know how long ago that was. That was many years ago. And I don't even think that project is still done in Jupiter. But I will tell you that Dave's a great friend, and not just that, but he is, when it comes to the insurance information and helping the clients when it comes to their insurance policy and understanding what's in best interest of them, Dave's the guy. He's worked on a lot of cases with me in the past, and he's always done a great job. So Dave, hopefully you're on, and because I can't see you, and I'm afraid to touch something on my screen. So let's talk about your insurance update. So you have to have an insurance checkup, excuse me. So make sure to have your policy reviewed now and by an expert. And here's what I mean by that. You know, your agent is an expert at insurance. Agent has a vested interest in that policy. So if you know your agent and you're comfortable with the agent, I know there's some great agents here that I would totally trust to review my policy and give me proper information. However, even though I trust them, I did take my policy and turn it over to an attorney to take a look at and ask him to do a review for my insurance to make sure that I'm covered in the case of an event. And we needed to make some adjustments to my insurance policy. So for all your businesses out there, make sure that you have your policy reviewed now and have it reviewed by an expert, whether it's a third party or it's your agent. Highly recommend it. And there's some great public adjusters out there that can help you as well. So one of the questions you always want to ask yourself is, do you have proper coverage? And what are those other coverages? So here's a few that we put on here. And Dave, you are up. So can you tell us a little bit, Dave, about having proper coverage?
Sure. So really, and I don't mean to be flippant, the two things that control whether or not you're well covered in the event of a hurricane or a storm are actually completely beyond your control. The first is the type of insurance that you can purchase, because that's limited and sometimes difficult unless you're in certain markets to get insurance that can cover all of the risks. The other issue is how the loss occurred or what the cause of the loss was, and that's beyond your control too. So the very best thing you can do, and I agree with what John said, the right insurance agent is worth his or her weight in gold, and they are able to take a very difficult, dense policy that is tough for lawyers to read, let alone non-lawyers, and tell you in bite-sized sentences what you got and what you don't have. So that's the high level. Most of this is beyond your control. So the first thing that policies and what they provide are based upon is what caused the harm. So was it, in some cases, a named storm? It doesn't have to be a hurricane. In some cases, it has to be a hurricane. In some cases, that is, in the event of certain types of policies, they're going to pay for a loss that is a windstorm, a hurricane, a named storm, a flood. But if it's something not one of those things, you may not have coverage. And so how the peril is defined or characterized, that is, how the cause of your damage is defined, is really critical. And that is typically where I'll hear from a buddy that says, hey, what should I say or not say? And that's really important. What you put on paper is even more important, but how you report the cause of the loss is important. And if you know what your policy says, the odds go up that you'll say the right thing when you make that phone call. So it is very good to know what you do and don't have. And then the second thing that they'll look at is what the damage that is at issue, exactly what caused it. Was it wind? Was it rain driven by wind? Or was it storm surge? Or was it flood? And so those things matter. So what the storm is or how it's called, and we'll call it the mechanism or cause of loss, are critical, because these policies are a little bit complicated, and you'll have one type of coverage with one type of deductible or one level of dollar coverage, and a slightly different policy provision that has a slightly different dollar amount, a different deductible. We probably all know just intuitively that the hurricane deductibles are among the highest that you would have in your business portfolio. And typically non-hurricane related deductibles are far less. So in any event, just to finish up very quickly, businesses will purchase policies with those different sublimits, deductibles, and business interruption has a whole different set of rules. So they will characterize it as, hey, you're on your own for the first 6 days, but we'll kick in on the 7th day, or you've got to prove net profits. And net profits is something very difficult to prove, particularly if you're not reporting profitable years in prior years, in pre-storm years in your business. And there's a number of different policies that are now being, or perils that are now being covered, including, let's say your business is fine, but there's no power. So you don't actually have something like a storm causing your business to be out of business, but you just don't have the necessities that you need in order to run your business. And there's coverage for that. And then finally, just to give you a little bit of a bite-sized thing, then what happens if your loss, that is a particular part of a roof or a wall or flooring or some particular room, is damaged by something that is covered and damaged by something that is not covered? And the lawyers, call that concurrent or sequential cause. And the rest of the human beings should just call that, there's two different reasons. So if there's two different reasons why damage occurs, that is a fertile ground for people to pick through, what was what, and it's really based upon opinion, because you can't actually be there during the storm to know what occurred. And I know, because I've seen John's slide, he's going to touch on something that is probably the number one thing you can do to help yourself after the fact, and you're looking at your policy in one hand and you have your hand out for a check in the other, and that is making sure that you document what you have and the condition of it beforehand. So thanks, John.
No, thank you, Dave. I got a couple quick questions for you, and everything you're talking about, like all those with the causation, I hear and see all the time people, not hiring experts, whether it's me or an attorney or a public adjuster, going at this. And I've talked about this, recently, that it's important that if you have a loss, that you get your team together, because the insurance company has their team, they have their experts. So it's always important that you have your team here, and people like Dave and other public adjusters that are out there will help you make sure that you will be able to get whatever has happened from the storm, that you get it covered. But so Dave, the question I have is, what is there one thing that you noticed through all your years doing this, that it seems like businesses forget or just don't put in their policy, or they decide, nah, I'm not going to have that so I can save a few dollars? What do you think that is?
Okay, so I think the most important thing that we're all discovering is that run a storm. But if you have a business that needs to be operating on day 2 or day 1, you can go outside the cone of the hurricane and set up. Well, there's coverage for that. There's coverage that allows you to set your entire business up somewhere else if you're not able to run it. Now, if you set up and push your business to the other side of the state and the storm doesn't hit, you may not have coverage. But if you do, and you're over there for 2-3 weeks or 3-4 months, there's a coverage commercially available that I think is of interest.
Great. I appreciate that. And as we all know, we've all gone, remote. It's so great to talk about something different today. I'm excited about that. And the truth is, we've all learned how to be remote. But people like you and myself, and we have to be remote. You have to go out there to to help the people that have been affected by storms. Now, one last thing, and then I'm going to move on. But tell me a little bit about business interruption, because I know that in the past I've seen so many businesses not have enough coverage for business interruption. There's been so many cases where, they were shut down longer than anticipated, or whatever it may be, and they didn't have enough coverage. Why is this so important on the business interruption side? You're muted, Dave. You thought you were finished, but you weren't.
Thank you. Well, I think we all have a warped sense of our own mortality, and I mean business mortality. Something exceeding 70% of businesses that go through a direct hit never reopen. 70% of small businesses never reopen. So you can imagine for those that do reopen, or for those of us that lived through Andrew or a storm that was very consequential, you know, you're looking at coverage that's going to run out after about 3 weeks. And so you have to be careful that you've purchased enough coverage and have thought through, you know, what does it cost you to run your business? Because here's the thing, the first thing any responsible business owner does is make sure his folks are okay, make sure they have cash. If the ATMs are down, are they covered? Are they going to get paid? So that's the number one thing. Are your people going to be able to eat? First of all, are they safe? Then can you get them through the time it takes to get business up and running? So calculate that. And I think, you know, that's the right number.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's so important that people realize that. Take a look at your policies now. Now's the time to do it. You know, you heard Howard talking about a storm being out there. So there's a lot of reasons that the insurance company won't change coverages when there's storms out there that are active in the, you know, in the Gulf or the Atlantic. So make sure you get with an expert. At the end of the slide, you'll have all three of our information that you can reach out to and ask them. And I didn't ask Dave this yet, but I'm sure he's gonna. We were gonna offer someone one business that we're gonna pick to do a free policy review. Hopefully, you're okay with that, Dave, just so they can get an idea of it.
Sure.
And because that's important, make sure your policy gets reviewed, and we're going to talk about that on how you can get a free policy review from Dave for us. All right, so now, thank you, Dave, I appreciate it. So pre-storm property assessment, what is this and why do we want to do it is what I want to talk about. And this is kind of where I come in. I do bring this whole team of people with me to make sure that your property is properly restored. But basically a pre-storm property assessment is we go out, we take a look at your property, we document it with photos, we give recommendations. We might see things that we know the insurance company will look at and use it as a denial mechanism to your claim if and when a storm hits. So this assessment will actually prepare you. So it's pretty much a few-page document that we'll put together for you and make sure that you have it so that when a storm hits, you're ready to go. That it will be able to help, whether it's your public adjuster, your attorney, or myself, or whoever it may be, when you file a claim on your commercial business, you know, how do you make sure you protect yourself? Usually takes a couple hours on site, takes a few hours to write up the report, and then we'll present it to, you know, the decision makers of the company as to who, you know, who handles all the insurance stuff. And then why have it? Well, I will tell you, working all these storms over the years, you know, denials. Insurance companies have denied a lot of claims. They've paid a lot of claims too. I'll give them credit for that. But most of them, when they deny, one of the biggest things I had seen with the denial was Dave said it was pre-existing. That it was one of the biggest things I'd hear. Oh, it was that way before. It was pre-existing. And if we didn't have the documentation to prove that it wasn't pre-existing, it was an uphill battle. It was very difficult. So this will help you document it to what it exactly looked like prior to the storm, so that we can help you bring it back to the pre-storm condition. So I get a lot of questions is, well, John, you know, my roofer can do that, or my contractor can do that, and they can. But here's what's important. You notice that I brought in all these experts. I don't know about weather. I don't know about the law. I'm not a public adjuster, so I bring all these experts in to help me. You want to do the same thing when it comes to your pre-storm property assessment. And who should perform those assessments? You want somebody that's been trained in storm restoration and storm damage, somebody who has seen it, somebody that knows and has worked with insurance companies to know how they're going to come at, and I don't want to say use the word attack, but go after the claim to not pay you. So you want to make sure that it's somebody's doing this pre-storm assessment so that they'll document it properly for when you get ready to file a claim. Because if you look at those probabilities, we go back, you know, 68% chance of Florida getting hit, you know, we want to be prepared. So if you decide not to use, you know, R&R or myself, and you want to use, you know, ask some questions. Now, what I want to talk to you about is not just pre-storm, but post-storm. And we're going to go into this on our next webinar. But getting the documents properly after a storm hits, there's so many times that we have seen contractors and roofers actually destroy evidence by not documenting it properly and the insurance company not pay. So here are some of the questions that you want to ask a person that is going to do a pre-storm or post-storm inspection for you. So what certifications do you have? You'll see on the slide here, these are some of the certifications that we hold. And then, is your company licensed? And this is mostly, it's really for both pre-storm and post-storm, but more importantly, hundreds and hundreds of contractors. If a storm hits Palm Beach County, there's going to be more roofing contractors and more storm restoration contractors than you can imagine. I believe the number was about 80 when Hurricane Michael hit the Panhandle. I believe there was about 80 contractors that have been arrested and put in jail for unlicensed contracting and unlicensed public adjusting. Another thing that's very serious. You want to make sure that you have a proper team and people that aren't doing anything illegal. So make sure they're licensed and of course insured. And then the other thing is, what storm damage experience do they have? Have they ever worked a storm? These are things that you want to make sure that people are putting together your pre-storm property assessment together. They know what the insurance company is looking for. Now, to wrap it up, really appreciate, I don't want to leave some time for questions and answers here. So I'm going to wrap it up. So be ready. You want to make sure you're ready. The first thing you need to know is know your risk and find out if you're in flood zones. You want to make sure your evacuation plans and routes. We're going to talk about that on the next webinar, but take a look at that now. Find out, whether you're in a flood zone. Find out your evacuation routes and where you need to go. Make sure immediately, do your insurance policy review and checkup. This is so important. Make sure you get it done now before those storms are active in the Gulf and in the Atlantic, because once they're active out there, I'm not an insurance agent, but I do know that there are times where they stop allowing you to make changes. The next thing is property assessment. We're going to offer for a limited time free property assessments for your commercial properties. It is a limited time, and now Dave has graciously said he's going to do an insurance policy review for us as well. So for this period of time, this is when you want to do those property assessments before any storms hit. And then our upcoming webinars that we're going to have, we're going to talk about flood zones, how they may impact you, and develop a workplace emergency plan. This is so important. You need to have your business ready for this emergency. It's not just your home, but it's also your business. Put together a workplace emergency plan. Start gathering your supplies now. Most of us that are from Florida know what supplies we need, but we're going to talk about that more. What to do right before and during a storm. So important that you're prepared. And then after all that happens, what are you going to do after a storm? Be ready. The most prepared people will make sure that their property gets restored and get back to work and get back to generating revenue as quickly as possible. So I want to thank everyone for being here today. We have some time for questions and answers. I think I'm going to turn it back over to Brittany. Here is our contact information for everybody. So please feel free to reach out to us directly if you have any questions you want to ask us offline. And at R&R Industries, that's where we protect you, we protect your investment, and we do make a difference. Thank you to the Chamber, and I turn it back over to you, Brittany.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so now is the time for Q&A. You have two options here. You can either submit a question via the chat, which I am monitoring right now, or you can choose to raise your hand, which you can do on the, I believe it's the participant screen. Again, another button you have to press on your Zoom call in the middle and the bottom part of your screen. You can raise your hand and then I'll make sure to call on you. Let's see, first question is, if I wanted you to do an assessment of a building, how would I schedule that and when would you be able to come?
Oh, that's a great question, and thank you. So it's pretty simple. You can email me at what's on the screen there, John at R Industries, or call me. We can get that scheduled for you. Right now, I believe I have an opening or two this week. I know next week is pretty much booked out, but we could get out fairly quickly. But we are getting booked solid right now, so the sooner the better. The soonest we could probably get out maybe Friday. I think we have one spot open left on Friday. And after that, it would probably be the following week.
Wonderful. So he can come as quickly as Friday. Okay, let's see. Just gonna look through. If anyone has a pressing question, also you can unmute yourself and ask away. Make sure to announce who you are when you ask the question. Don't be shy.
Hey, John, it's Chip. I have a couple of questions.
Oh man, that scares me when Chip Armstrong has a question.
I said a couple. You should really be scared. So if I have a customer who wants to schedule an assessment, whenever you do it, how much time do you typically need? Let's say it's a 7,000 square foot building. And do you need access to the roof and all that stuff too, I would assume, right?
Yes, Chip, thanks. That's a great question. So depending upon how, like, so 7,000 square foot, you're looking at a couple hours. We would need access to the roof. A lot of times we'll request some access to the interior as well to take a look at a few things, mostly exterior, but it takes a few hours to do, between 2 to 3 hours on that size of a building, and we would need access to the roof.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You said you had another question?
You answered it all.
Oh. Thank you, Chip. All right. Hit the wrong button there. Well, if there isn't any other questions, I will, go ahead and turn everything back over to Brittany and the team there. We get to end a couple minutes early. So thank you so much, everyone. Hopefully you'll register. Our next webinars are going to be coming up June 3rd and July 1st. So we're going to be doing these on the first Wednesdays of the month for the next couple months here. And let's get all prepared and be resilient and be ready for storm season.
Absolutely. And feel free to join anyone on the call if you'd like to join us for any of our other upcoming events. John did mention that we do have a webinar for hurricane preparedness, hurricane season, and that will be every first Wednesday of the month. We do have a weekly event called Tech Toast that happens every Thursday. It's a virtual happy hour, so feel free to join us for that as well. And we have Power Networking next Wednesday. So please stay tuned to our Facebook page and our website for the updates on all upcoming events. And again, thank you all for being here, and I hope everyone stays happy and healthy.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We miss everybody. Please be safe.